This meeting of the Haltom City Council, October 9, 2006, is now in order. Let's see here. Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Sutton?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Ryan Murphy, who's the director of Love Never Fails and is a pastor at Calvary Chapel, and he's going to lead our invocation and our pledge. So let's all stand.
If you'll join me, I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'll join me in prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for a city council that's able to rule and to reign justly and to hear from you. And we look to you tonight, Father, and for wisdom. You said you'd pour it out upon us if we asked for it. So we ask for wisdom in all the dealings tonight, and just all the needs over the city we pray for tonight. We ask you would deal with those situations and be there with all the people in this city, Lord. And just give the mayor and the council just wisdom, and give us the people tonight the honor and the freedom of knowing we have the government here. And we just thank you and we praise you for this night. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Before we get into the announcements and events, I just wanted to announce that the Mayor Pro Tem and I had the honor and pleasure of doing a ribbon cutting this last weekend, Saturday, at the Saigon Taipei grocery store. That's down where those of you who have been around for a while, the old Cox's and Stripling's Center down at Belknap and Beach. Huge new Asian market down there. And one of the pleasures that we ran across was our own version of, what's the name of that coffee place that's so famous?
The other one?
Yeah, the other one.
Starbucks?
Starbucks, yeah, Starbucks. We have our own version of that down right there at that grocery store is the most fantastic coffee drink. Some iced coffee. It's actually a French drink that the Vietnamese have perfected, and you can get it right there in Haltom City inside that grocery store. We had a couple of them, and I was wired pretty well by the time I left there.
Yes.
Lots of caffeine in there.
And lots of calories.
Yeah.
It's made with half and half.
So Assistant City Manager Chuck Barnett will now have the rest of the announcements.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, I'm not Fran Burns. She took the night off, so I appreciate that. Each Thursday in October, the Haltom Senior Citizen Center will host a series of informational seminars focusing on elder care. That's important to each one of us. These programs cover different topics each week. There's no charge for anyone to attend. The Senior Citizen Center is located at 5000 Bernice Street. For any information, please call the center at 817-834-8021. Saturday, October the 14th is going to be a busy day in Haltom City. The following items will take place on that date. From starting at 7 a.m. in the morning till 1 p.m., there will be a free landfill day at the C&D landfill at 4144 Dick Price Road in Fort Worth. Residents may bring any bulky trash for free disposal. This will not include household hazardous waste items. Please bring a city water bill and driver's license as proof of your residency. Then at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., Haltom City Fire Rescue will have its open house at Fire Station Number 1, located at 5525 Broadway Avenue. Learn about fire prevention through hands-on activities which are meant for the children and adults alike. Then at 10 a.m., an important item will take place in our city. We will have a town hall meeting at the Haltom City Public Library adjacent to City Hall, led by Haltom City Mayor Bill Langford. The subject is, how can elected officials and the citizens they represent communicate more effectively? I would invite all of our citizens to attend this important meeting. Tuesday, October 31st is our Halloween Carnival. It will be held at the Haltom City Recreation Center, located down the street at 4839 Broadway Avenue. The carnival will be held from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for children ages 12 and under. There will be games, food, and a bounce house, and there'll also be a best costume contest. And, of course, there's going to be prizes and lots of candy, so which I'm sure the parents will be appreciative of that. And then I want to remind everybody of their right to vote. You've had individuals through our history of the United States have given their life for this privilege. Early voting in the regular November 7th election will begin October 23rd and will be available at the Haltom City Recreation Center. Please see the city's newsletter or specific dates and times, or you can check out our city website at www.haltomcitytx.com. Although restrictions on watering lawns and landscapes have been lifted in our city and some others, we are still in the midst of a drought. I encourage residents and ask them to do all they can do to conserve our water. Please keep in mind that also the burn ban is still in effect for our city. And one last item, there's a beautiful piece of plywood that's outside the recreation center right down the street. This is going to be the location of our new message sign. It is not some new decoration we've added to the rec center. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Next up is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be self-explanatory and will be enacted by the council with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless they are removed from the consent agenda, which none of them have been. Approval of the consent agenda authorizes the city manager to implement each item in accordance with staff or board recommendations. I will now entertain a motion to dispose. Mr. Cabano?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we accept the consent agenda as presented today with the changes, with the changes for the minutes that we discussed in work session.
All right, Mr. Hutchison.
That would be for seconds.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please register your vote. And that is unanimous. Moving on to the regular agenda. Excuse me. Ordinance, this is item number 6, ordinance number O-6-024-003, consideration, interaction, and approval of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of City of Haltom City, Texas general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2006. And Brother Joel Welch.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Enclosed in your packet is a synopsis of the issue and what we're doing here tonight. And before I begin that, of course, I want to mention that again that the city's bond counsel is with us tonight. Jeff Kuhn, he is with Fulbright and Jaworski, and since Mark McCliney couldn't be here tonight, he had another meeting. I'm making the presentation, but he did send his associate Ryan Cunningham, who is here with us tonight as well, and they're in the gallery. Basically, what is happening here is Mark had been looking at our debt structure after we had sold the bonds and certificates of obligation that the council just recently approved, and he was looking at a certain portion of it being specifically the 2000 general obligation bonds. These bonds had about $1.66 million outstanding that could be refinanced at a savings if there was enough savings to do it. So he contacted the Bank of America, who has bought our last issue, and asked if they had any interest in this particular issue. As y'all may recall, he sold the previous issue to Bank of America for 4%, which was a great deal. Well, Bank of America said they would buy this refunding for 3.84%, 16 basis points less. What we're doing here with this particular type of issue is we are refinancing a portion of the city's outstanding debt, and this debt is secured with it's paid from property taxes. So we're freeing up some room in our property tax levy by redoing some of this debt. What we're doing, it's very similar to the same thing that you do with your home finances. If you refinance your house, if you refinance a car, you go to the bank and work out a better arrangement with the bank. The bank tears up your old loan and gives you a new loan. Well, that's where the change for the city occurs. The city can refinance debt, but we cannot tear up the old note. We can't tear up those GO bonds because those GO bonds are spread out all over the country, and there's bondholders, corporate banks, individuals all over the country hold these bonds, and they have rights to keep these bonds to certain maturity dates. So what you do at the city level is you issue a new set of bonds, and these bonds are called refunding bonds. Once the bonds are issued, the money from the sale of the bonds goes to a trustee. The trustee buys these certain investments that are known as state and local government securities. In the business, we call them slugs. But they buy slugs and they hold these investments until they mature. And their maturity dates time with the same dates that these other bonds are due. And so they take the investment and they pay off the other bonds with it. The advantage to the city is we save money. First of all, that old issue goes off of our balance sheet and it's replaced with the new issue. The new issue at 3.84% is for a slightly greater face amount. We are talking about doing away with $1,660,000 in debt. We are borrowing $1,805,000 to do it. That's $145,000 more in principal. But the difference in interest that we're going to pay, we're going to save $261,000 in interest, which means that the interest savings is $115,000 more than what we're paying in principal. So we're saving $115,000 at the end of this deal. And that'll be saved out over the remaining life of the bonds. I didn't mention this in the workshop, but we are not extending the debt. These GO bonds had an original final maturity of 2020. This refunding issue goes to 2020, so there's no difference in the time frame. The difference is by doing this, we're going to have an interest savings that we will see in the amount of about $8,000 to $9,000 a year between now and 2020 until it reaches a final total of about $115,000. One question that I was asked in workshop that I didn't have an answer for, but I do now, is that because we're borrowing more money than what we owe, there's going to be a bigger principal on the balance sheet. And I was asking the workshop about what time does that become equal again. It becomes approximately equal in about the year 2016. And then it finishes out the rest of the way to 2020, pretty much within $5,000 of each other all the rest of the way. So for a little while, it's a little bit greater, but like I said, you're still saving so much on interest that the actual out-of-pocket expense for the city is lower every year of this arrangement. And like I said, I've done the financial part. If you have any legal questions, Mr. Kuhn would be more than happy to get up and visit with you.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions about this? Joel, it sounds like the savings is of $216,000 in interest is about a year's worth of bond payouts. Is that right? Is that something on that order? I mean, it'd be less the 145, but that's. I'm just trying to.
I'm sorry,
Put it into perspective. Well, obviously I confused you.
Yeah, I'm
That's
sorry.
not easily
Still
done
understand
either.
the question. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll move right along to Mr. Holcomb. He'll have a question for you. Mr. Holcomb.
Thank you, Mayor. Joel, this may be a simple question. I mean, obviously,
Yes, sir.
We found a good situation here from the bonds issued in 2000. I could just assume that older bonds have been reviewed for that same situation, or is this just a unique situation here?
Mr. Holcomb, that is an excellent question, because the bond council does go through all of our bonds all of the older ones. And we have, I wasn't going to get into this, but since you asked, I'm going to talk about this just for a minute because it's a bit of a unique situation. What makes this sale work so well is that it's a bank qualified sale. And if y'all remember when we talked about the last GO bonds and CO certificates of obligation issue, when we sold the bonds up just a little while back, Mark was talking about the advantages of it being bank qualified, that banks can buy it. Banks get a preferential tax treatment on these types of issues, so they're more willing to buy it at a better interest rate. Well, we had already used $7.5 million of our $10 million exception for this year. Well, because of some planning issues for next year and the possibility that we may be borrowing a good bit of money next year for certain projects, we didn't have enough room next year to do a bank qualified. So all we had was that $2.5 million in room we had. Well, this particular issue was the only thing that would fit and get the bank qualification. If we get another window of opportunity next year, I wouldn't be too surprised if we don't avail ourselves by coming back for some of the rest of that. But this was the best of all of the possibilities. But it's going to require the rates to kind of hold together like they are, but they might.
It's nice to know that y'all are constantly working at it. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Mr. Sutton.
Joe, I should have asked this back there, but it just kind of popped in my head. Dealing with something that's a little bit subjective, what effect do you think inflation would have on, we're having a little bit more principal, and I don't know if it's going to have any effect. I assume that it would have an effect and actually decrease the benefit that we would realize, but probably by not that much, since inflation is who knows, 3%, 5%, what?
It won't have any effect because once the bonds are sold and the slugs are purchased, everything is fixed for the rest of the plan, so it won't have an effect. I mean, the interest rates on everything's all fixed.
So it won't enter into the equation then. Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions?
I've got one if you don't
Okay.
mind. I don't know if this is something more for you or for Jeff. I just kind of thought about it. With the way the markets are these days, or I guess other communities are doing something similar. And I mean, you've got clients all over the state. I mean, Fulbright Jaworski does. It's what we're undertaking. This is not all that terribly uncommon.
No, but that's a great question. Yeah. Once of all, let me, if I can, I'm Jeff Kuhn with Fulbright Jaworski, and it's been my privilege and honor of representing y'all for 21 years. And my mentor represented the city for a number of years before then. So it's my privilege and honor to be here. What our role is we give a bond opinion, in this case to Bank of America, that the bonds are validly issued and that the interest they receive is tax exempt. Okay. So that's our role, and then we'll shepherd this through the Texas Attorney General. It would be our recommendation that you approve the ordinance tonight. We're looking at closing November 7th, the funding. But, Tom, it's a great question. Yes, with the rally in the bond market and interest rates going down, everyone is trying to capture. I'm sure Mark told you when he was here a month ago that, gosh, 4%, how could you get possibly lower than that? And the market has rallied. So, yes, we are literally almost every night adopting ordinances refunding debt to do exactly what Haltom said he's doing tonight for savings.
I just want the citizens to be aware this is, while it's something new for us, this is nothing that's new to the market or new to other cities.
No, and as Mr. Welch said, Mark McCliney and Ryan Cunningham are looking at your debt models to capture these kind of savings and bring them to your attention on a routine basis.
Right. And that's exactly what happened here. Mr. McCliney and Mr. Cunningham found that out.
Correct.
Any other questions on this item? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate
Pleasure.
it. Is this a public hearing? No, it's not. Okay. All right. Any other discussion up here? Just a one reading. And this is a one and only. This is the first and only reading. Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Holcomb.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't mean to jump the gun. That I was just stepping in line for a motion to approve. Thank you. Move to approve ordinance number 0-2006-2 or 024, -03, for the issuance of City of Haltom City General Obligation Refunding Bonds for 06.
Mr. Cabano.
That's for second, Mayor.
And Wayne, you have a comment?
Yeah, just to elaborate for the citizens why we're having the one reading of the ordinance. Most citizens are used to us having two readings because our charter requires that for all of our ordinances, but this is a situation where the state law supersedes our charter requirement when there's a bond issuance, and therefore only one reading is required. So this will be the only vote of the council on this ordinance, and I just wanted the citizens to understand why.
Thank you. Thank you, Wayne. Mr. Hutchison. Oh, you're good? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All right, please register your votes. It is unanimous. Mr. Clark, Dale Clark is absent tonight, so it is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Item number 7 on the agenda, PO 15-06, excuse me, conduct a public hearing on consideration or action regarding the application of Norman Kemp for the final plat of Lot 1R, Block 6 of the Cascade Heights Edition, being a replat of Lots 1 and 2, Block 6 of the M2 Industrial District, containing approximately .918 acres of land located in the southeast corner of Anderson and Clay Avenue, locally known as 4504 Anderson Boulevard. Mr. Pliska.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, citizens of Haltom City. We're having this hearing due to the replat of the property you just described. By replatting the property, the applicant is creating a 40,000 square foot corner lot, proposed Lot 1R. Lot 1R will be comprised of Lots 1 and 2, Block 6 of the Cascade Heights Edition. An existing concrete structure is built across the lot line that separates the two, therefore the need for the replat. Therefore, the nonconforming structure violates both the city's zoning and subdivision ordinances. Therefore, the applicant is replatting both lots into one large lot, which will bring the structure into compliance and allow the applicant to expand the existing building, and he intends to expand the structure 1,200 square feet. This plat was recommended for approval to the City Council by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The decision was at the September 26th meeting. Therefore, I formally submit the applicant's 11/17 copy of said plat and the applicant's survey indicating the location of the building relative to the property lines, hence the need for the plat for any type of expansion, and GIS information for your review.
Any questions for Mr. Pliska? Thank you, Mr. Pliska.
Thank you, Mayor.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to dispose. Oh, we have. That's right. We are. Well, this is a public hearing. I apologize. Getting a little ahead of myself. There's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this item? Please come forward and identify yourself, please. It does say public hearing. Thanks, Mr. Kemp. If you want to stay or do it yourself, you're there to answer your question.
Thank you. Excuse me. My name is Norman Kemp, and this property that we're having to replat is my property. If you have any questions at all, I'm here to answer them, so we can move ahead with our addition.
Okay. We may have one, Mr. Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, sir.
Norman Kemp.
Mr. Kemp. The property, you're going to do expansion on what, sir? What is the building going to be used for?
We have a manufacturing company, and this building is like 8,600 square feet that was built in 1969. I didn't straddle that property myself, but that's when it was built, and it straddled these two lots. A portion of the building, 1,200 square feet of the building, was a metal structure when I bought it, and I removed that metal structure, and I'm putting it back to match to conform with the rest of the building, which is haydock block construction and masonry. So actually, I just took the metal down, and I'm going to go back in, but it's a manufacturing facility, to answer your question.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else have a comment or questions on the public hearing? If not, I'll close the public hearing and now entertain a motion to dispose. Mr. Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve final plat number P-015-06.
Is there a second? Ms. Branson.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded to approve P-015-06. Any further discussion? Then please register your vote. And that is unanimous. Next on the agenda, item 8 has been pulled from the agenda. Is that correct?
That's correct,
Yeah.
Mayor. I've received in writing from the applicant to withdraw this application for further consideration.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Next up, the Visitor Citizens Forum. This time is set aside for any person having business before the council that is not scheduled on the agenda to speak to the council. All comments must be directed toward the presiding officer rather than an individual council member or staff. Each speaker must limit his or her comments to the subject matter listed on the speaker's request form and must refrain from personal attacks toward any individual. Council cannot discuss or debate any issue brought forth at this time, nor can any formal action be taken, as it is not a posted agenda item in accordance with the open meetings law. And first up, and let's see, you got 2 of them. Are you applying for 12 minutes? Yes. Okay. Then we'll call you up one at a time. Mr. Scott Garrett has some unanswered questions he would like to speak to.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council, City staff, Haltom City citizens. Last time I came up, I spoke I had some questions about stewardship, your stewardship of our tax dollars. Now tonight, before the meeting started, Mayor Lanford warned me against coming up and saying anything. He cited that I could be damaging some relationships, which is certainly important. Just by damaging relationships, by questioning you, I don't buy into that. I said the relationship between the council and the citizens is more important. The questions I asked last time about your stewardship, I noted at the very beginning that I may not have all the facts, and that's why I asked the questions to begin with. Your replies or your responses have not been pleasurable. The next day after the last council meeting, I sent emails to the mayor and all council members, and I'd like to share those results. Mayor Lanford replied, "Thanks for passing these on." Mr. Sutton replied he'd have to get back with me later. Mr. Hutchison replied he'd like to talk to me over the phone if he could. Ms. Branson stated that she too would like to call, but ended up answering my email today. Mr. Holcomb, Mr. Cabano, Mr. Clark, and Ms. Reese all had no reply. The following Saturday, Mayor Lanford called, but I didn't have time to talk as I had just had a blowout on my motorcycle and needed to deal with that. Mr. Hutchison called last Wednesday or Thursday, and this is what was said. Of course, there's no record of that phone call, which is why I asked for email replies in the first place. He said that I had made some council members angry with my questions, and I wonder why angry. I asked valid and legitimate questions about how you were spending our tax dollars. He said my questions made it seem like I was coming from the other side of the political fence, whatever that means. Are valid questions considered divisive? Perhaps you don't know me that well. I don't play games and I don't play politics. If I'm on any side, it's my side. I'm a taxpayer. I'm on the side of all taxpayers in Haltom City. He did answer some of my questions, however. He said the library site was chosen due to a study that was done showing more residents from north of 820 utilize the library than those south of 820. To me, that still does not justify the spot in an industrial district and the effort and cost that went into acquiring that land. People from the north are already going to the library, and I'm wondering, couldn't a better site be chosen? Mr. Hutchison also noted, interestingly, that in the beginning the EDC was in control of the library project. Then due to legislation changes in the state, they were not. Is a library economic development. Then he shocked me with this confession. The $4 million borrowed for the library is not enough to finish the project. If it's not enough, why do we do it in the first place? When did we know that the $4 million would not be enough? Where are we getting the rest of the money? Are we getting it from the EDC? And how often does the EDC fund our shortfalls? Is this good stewardship, another ill-funded and mismanaged project? He also stated that since the library is next to railroad tracks, noise buffers will be installed. And I wondered, what are noise buffers? Well, they're big walls that are going to be installed next to the library. Isn't that attractive? He answered my questions about the land value. He stated it was valued at $5 million and stated we paid only $2.5 million, which sounds good, right? But according to an article in the March 28, 2006 Star-Telegram, in which Mr. Muir is quoted, the land was appraised at $2 million during the eminent domain proceedings, yet we paid $2.5 million. At first, I heard it was valued at $1 million, and we paid $1.5. Then Ms. Branson stated in her email today that we paid $2.5. but it was appraised in excess of that amount. So which story is correct? I don't know because nobody answered my emails. Mr. Hutchison also confirmed, as did Ms. Branson, that the city did not retain the mineral rights to the land, and the seller did. Thank you very much. At the end of the conversation, I asked Mr. Hutchison to put everything he had stated in an email so that I would not misquote him. I have yet to receive that email. Yesterday, Sunday the 8th, Ms. Branson called and left me a voicemail. I returned the call via her voicemail, indicated I was very busy, and asked her to respond via my original email. She did respond this afternoon with answers to a lot, but not all of my questions. She indicated that some of the questions were more involved than can be answered in email. Really? I thought they were pretty straightforward. I was pleased to see what information she did send, but I'm still confused as to why it's so difficult for other council members to answer emails. It also appears that some of the answers don't exactly match those given by Mr. Hutchison or facts stated by city staff, so further research is needed. So what conclusions can be drawn from these events? If citizens inquire as to how our tax dollars are being spent, we will anger the council. Will we be accused of being on the other side like some kind of enemy? Why are emails not answered? I can only draw two conclusions. They're not answered because you can't provide the answers, or they're not answered because you won't provide the answers. Which is it? Even the local newspaper has been reporting how local governments seem to be forgetting the fact that they work for the citizens, not the other way around. I'm here to remind you. I've placed an open records request for the materials that will answer all of my previous questions, and as soon as I have that data and those answers, I'll return to this podium to provide answers to all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir.
May I make a factual observation here at this point?
A factual observation
A factual yes, I
is
would.
in line.
May I request in public that all of Mr. Garrett's emails to date to the City Council be made the subject of an item on the agenda, public agenda for our next council meeting. Can I do that?
Yes, you may.
I would like to do that. Tom, can you handle that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And I'd like to have all those answers in writing to distribute to the entire public. We'll have stacks of them down here for everybody that wants to, and bring lunch, because we will go well beyond the written response and give the appropriate context to Mr. Garrett's questions. And I will address as well your original comments today about our private conversation a while ago. Okay, we'll address that in public. Is that all right? Okay, Mr. Garrett, you're up again for another 6 minutes for answered email.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Scott Garrett, 5005 Jerry Lane. The answers is all I wanted in the first place. Okay, I did get, when I got one email that answered my questions, and I did receive another email. I received one email answering my aforementioned questions regarding the city's stewardship of our tax dollars. I also received another email in reference to my questions from Mr. Sutton. Yesterday at 4:24 p.m., I received the following email from Jim Sutton. As it was sent from his city council email address and his public record, I'd like to share it with you now. Scott, last week I understand that the mayor had contacted you and that you were going to call him back to arrange a time to meet due to the motorcycle accident. Sorry to hear about that, but I'm glad that it was not more serious. When he did not hear from you, Bill and I assumed that your questions had been resolved by other means. I received information from the city secretary that an open records request was filed pertaining to the questions just recently. I have no problem with anyone filing an open records request. I'm just perplexed about why you would not speak with the mayor about your questions and why your actions do not line up with your words. I had not responded after my previous email since the mayor had expressed his desire with me to talk with you. If you're not able to speak with the mayor, please call and talk with me, for the questions can be addressed in an open manner, but I think the mayor was trying to save you some public embarrassment based on the assumptions in some of the questions. I have been much engaged with other commitments, but will carve out time for you if I can be of any help. Sincerely, Jim Sutton, Haltom City Council, Place 1. First, why did I deserve to receive such a hostile email from a city council member? Second, my first reaction was one should never write an email when you're angry, but then I thought, why is he angry in the first place? He states that he and Mayor Lanford assumed my questions had been resolved. Assumed? Why didn't he check? Why didn't he go ahead and answer my email? He notes that he has no problem with anyone filing an open records request. Thank you for your permission. In fact, there are a number of topics which I'm interested in. I think I'll be doing a lot more open records requests if you don't mind. He also states that if I'm not able to speak with the mayor, please call him. Again, a phone call, nothing in writing. Why? Phone calls are difficult with my schedule, full-time work, college, family, etc. It's interesting to note that many of you were willing to take time to call and speak for an unlimited time, but you could not drop your answers in an email, which hopefully has been resolved now. Then I'm asked why I didn't speak with the mayor and why my actions do not line up with my words. My action was sending an email requesting answers to my questions, to which I received nothing. But let's consider words. This government has said many words about transparency and honesty in their dealings and stewardship of our tax dollars. We've been assured that everything is above board, but what do your actions show about that now? If I was so wrong with my assumptions, why didn't the council members quickly rebut my assertions with the truth? Why would Mr. Sutton get so upset because of simple questions? I attacked no one. Then Mr. Sutton says that the mayor was trying to save me some public embarrassment based on assumptions in some of my questions. Public embarrassment for what? For posing questions to this council about how you're spending the taxpayers' money? And to which questions I clearly stated prior to my presenting them that I may not have the correct information. Are the other citizens that have brought these questions to me to be embarrassed too? Not the only one that's concerned about this matter, I assure you. He says I'm to be embarrassed based on my assumptions, but what of his assumption that my questions had already been answered? An assumption that he and Mayor Lanford took no time to verify. By the way, I admitted to not having all of the facts, which is why I was asking these questions in the first place, but this does not negate the fact that the burden of proof is on you, not me. I'm not embarrassed at all by asking questions. Questions are asked to find answers. Finally, Mr. Sutton notes that he is much engaged with other commitments, but will carve out some time for me if it can be of any help. It's funny how he's so busy, but I'm not supposed to be. Is that arrogance? Is his time so much more valuable than mine? I'm supposed to have time to sit down on the phone with all 7 members of the council and the mayor to get answers, but he will merely carve out time for me if need be. This, my friends, is why I put in an email which didn't get answered. Does Mr. Sutton's email serve as a summary to the apparent attitude of this government? Don't question what we do or how we do it, or you'll be considered an enemy. If you do question, the council will become angry and you'll be ostracized. We will use condescending language in an attempt to intimidate and bully you into submission and silence. Just for future reference, I'm not intimidated, and I won't be bullied. As a matter of fact, the many citizens I've had the pleasure of meeting in Haltom City will not be bullied either. They expect you to be good stewards of their hard-earned tax dollars just as I do. Public government's funded by our tax dollars, and we have a right to view any and all the documents in this government. We have a right to know exactly how our money is being spent, and we have the right to intervene if we feel your behavior is not befitting a public servant. Frankly, an email of this sort is ethically questionable at best, in my opinion. Also, in the future, I'll no longer seek your answers to my queries. I will first do an open records request on a given topic. Then I'll present all relevant data here in this forum for all to hear and see. In summary, I only wanted answers to valid and legitimate questions in writing which you were unable to provide. Answers in writing would have simply provided for an environment where hearsay would not enter in and dilute the truth. Is answering questions in writing too transparent? Is it too honest? This is not big government where we do not know our representatives. Rather, you are our neighbors and our friends and fellow taxpayers. I would think you would be just as concerned about the stewardship of this government as I am. Perhaps not. As mentioned earlier, your actions do not seem to be lining up with your words. That's truly disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Would remind all speakers of the line in here, must refrain from personal attacks toward any individual. Let's be cognizant of personal attacks against individuals, please. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Mr. Bill Journay talking about corridors, plural. Mr. Journay.
My name is Bill Journay, 4529 Nadine, Haltom City. I don't intend to attack any individuals. I don't think I like anybody. Okay, the three corridors, Trans-Texas, Northeast Corridor, and now we've got the Belknap Corridor. I attended several meetings and functions of all 3 of these. None nor neither brought to the people what I would call anything democratically, more like a republic. The people really have no voice or vote. Neither of these corridors will be enhanced will enhance our freedom or safety. On the contrary, they do so much more to jeopardize both. However, it is the stupid economy, isn't it? Did I say that right? No one in leadership was there to represent the working homeowners and taxpayers. No one was really concerned about those who would have to surrender their homes or businesses. But this is not that important to those who see only our economic future. Same with our education programs. We want larger schools, better babysitters, but not smarter graduates who can honestly think and do for themselves. Your first responsibility to us is freedom and safe streets and neighborhoods. If indeed we have all of this money at our disposal to change and alter our neighborhoods and landscapes, let us direct this first to our freedom and safety, quality education, and our people in general, and stop behaving like plutocrats leading a socialist republic. Or is this in fact what we have become? By the way, no answer, in fact, is an answer indeed. It kind of reminds me of when I was playing football. You guys remind me of me. I was a center there, and somebody fumbled a football, and I picked it up, and I ran with it. Boy, I'll tell you what, 60 yards, and I crossed the finish line. And when I come back to the bleachers, I didn't know if my coach was laughing or crying. But he says, "You done a wonderful job. You done everything right, but you went the wrong way." Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jornay. Next on the agenda is boards and commissions, resignations of board members. Mr. I'm sorry. You're exactly right. We've got the Visitors and Citizens Forum continuing. I apologize. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on the Visitors Citizen Forum? Thank you for reminding me. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. Moving on to the next one. Boards and commissions, resignations. Mr. Holcomb.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one resignation from Mary Spencer. She has submitted her resignation from the Beautification Board.
All right. We want to vote to ratify this. Ratify this resignation. Please register your vote. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Any other resignations? Moving on to the next item, item 10, appointment or reappointment to boards and commissions. Mr. Holcomb.
Sorry, hold on one second. I've got it here somewhere. Here it is. I have a Miss Allison Roach that had applied for the Beautification Board, and I spoke with, I'm trying to think of the individual's name. They called me last week, and the name escapes my mind, but I'd like to ask for ratification of Allison Roach for the Beautification Board.
Okay. Any discussion? And please register your vote. And that is 5-1, 5-0 and 1. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I thought, Kim, you were abstaining. No. Okay. This. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. So it is unanimous. All right. Thank you. All right. And I have an appointment to the P&Z alternate number 2, Valeria Leonard, Val Leonard, to alternate number 2 on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Please register your vote to ratify. And that is unanimous. Next item on the agenda is excused absence of council members. Mr. Dale Clark is absent tonight. He had to work tonight. Have anyone to dispose of? Yeah, Mr. Sutton?
Thanks, thanks, Mayor. I talked with Dale, and he had to fill in for another worker there at DFW, and we all know that he holds a public safety job out at the airport that cannot be. It takes priority over everything else, and so I want to excuse his absence because he's doing a service to all of us, even beyond Haltom City with his job.
All righty. Is there a second? Ms. Branson?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to excuse the absence of Mr. Dale Clark. Any discussion? Please register your vote. And that is unanimous. We do have a executive session to go into. Now, what do I need to read here? Is from the front, this is authorized under Section 551-071 and Section 551-072. We will retire into executive session.